Hello, everyone. I hope you're doing fine. I hope that life has been treating you well so far. I'm finally back with a new video, and today it's going to be a full wrap up of 2 months, July and August. I will be speaking about 8 books in total, and there will be a very short and quick book haul at the end of the video. So, July was a surprisingly and unexpectedly great reading month. I've managed to read 6 books, something I haven't done in ages. I've read 3 books, physical books, and listened to 3 audiobooks. August, on the other hand, was not a good reading month. I've only read 2 books, but I'm quite happy with what I've read. Now, let's start with July wrap up. So, the first book I have read during July was Dreams of Trespass by Fatema Mernissi, which I have reviewed on my previous video. So, if you haven't watched it yet, you can just wait until the end of the video and it'll pop up on your screen. Otherwise, you can have the link or you can find the link in my description box. But overall, it was such an immense pleasure to finally have the chance to read something by Fatema Mernissi and about Fatema Mernissi. Second book was Handle with Care by Jodi Picoult. This is my first Jodi Picoult novel. This is an adult fiction chick lit novel. It was published in 2009. This story follows Willow, a 5 years old girl who suffers from a bone disease, a very rare and serious bone disease. She has stage 3 OI. I'm going to leave the exact words somewhere here. Since she was born, her family's life has become a series of interruptions, and the reason is obviously her constant bone fractures. Willow is always at risk of breaking her bones. She could literally break her bones going up or down the stairs, going to the toilet, taking a shower, doing anything that you could imagine. So, Charlotte, the mother who used to be a very successful chef and who unfortunately had to abandon her career, is going to find herself caught between a rock and a hard place, trying to ensure a safe and comfortable future for her daughter, for her sick daughter, Willow. So she's going to have to make a very tough decision. Charlotte is going to file a lawsuit against her only best friend, Piper, who happens to be her obstetrician. If you'd like to know why, I'm sorry, I am not willing to give you more details, because if you want to know why, you need to read this book, because there's just a lot going on and you need to discover that for yourself. This whole situation is clearly going to have multiple repercussions, not only on Charlotte and Piper's friendship, but also on both their families. I have so much appreciation regarding so many things in this book. Jodi Picoult seemed to have done a great deal of heavy research on the topics she covered in this story. I find this book truly eye-opening. It's the kind of book that'll make you feel uncomfortable, edgy, and that will make you question a lot of things. The author explores a lot of subjects that are of great value and importance to every one of us. First, friendship, the true meaning of motherhood, adoption and abortion, mental illness, etc., etc. Also, if you have already read Wonder by R.J. Palacio, I think that you will notice a lot of similarities in both stories. Both stories evolve around young kids who suffer from rare diseases. Both kids have elder siblings who usually feel left out and neglected by their families. Also, both books are divided into chapters in which every character tells the story from his or her own perspective, except that in Wonder, we get to see the world from August's perspective, while in this book, we don't get to see or we don't get to read Willow's perspective until the very last chapter. But then it's so much different in the way both plots unfold. This is kind of very intense and directed to a much older audience. So, with all that said, I would only recommend this book to those of you who would be interested in reading about any of the subjects I have already mentioned in my review. I personally was kind of disappointed by the ending. I was not waiting for that specific unpredictable plot twist at the end. How am I going to describe it, or how am I going to put it? It just was let's say, superfluous and necessary. But to wrap it all up, I would definitely read more by Jodi Picoult. I believe she's a great storyteller. Next book is Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I have finally got my Harry Potter series, and I actually was looking forward to reading the saga for so long. Ever since I have started being more interested or more engaged into the bookish community. If you follow me on Bookstagram, you would notice that I'm not a huge fan of fantasy. I don't usually read fantasy books, but I kind of consider Harry Potter as a classic. And although I'm still at the beginning of the series, I mean, I have only finished this book and watched the movie for the first time. Yeah, believe it or not. I have already started Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets, and I could already tell that it is getting so much better. I have to tell you that I'm also having a whale of a time listening to the wonderful audiobook narration by the amazing Stephen Fry. And if you are also like me looking for a book to keep on your bedside table, I would definitely go for this one. Harry Potter has become my comfort read. It usually helps me to get into a peaceful sleep. It helps me to shut my mind down and just, escape the world for a few minutes or a couple of hours before bed. Okay, now off to the audiobooks. The first audiobook I have listened to during July was With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. This was my first book by the author. I've already heard a lot about her, but honestly, this was just a random pick. And since she was narrating the book by herself, I anticipated that it was going to be a unique experience. Her narration adds so much flavor to the listening experience. I loved how soothing and compelling her voice is. She has a capacity to convey the spirit of the story through her voice. And I also loved the writing style. Very simple but delicate. After I finished listening to the audiobook on Storytel, they have added this option where you get to select how you feel after listening to the audiobook, and I went immediately with cozy. I would also describe the story as refreshing, inspiring. Also, it's very easy to read, and it could simply help you out of a reading slump. Next, I've listened to The Kite Runner by Khaled Hosseini, and this one too was narrated by the author himself. A year ago, I have promised myself to read at least one Khaled Hosseini book in 2020, but I ended up reading two. I have read A Thousand Splendid Suns first, and only after I had finished reading the book had I realized that it was his second book after his debut, The Kite Runner. And I felt kind of curious because I wanted to see how Khaled Hosseini shifted from male to female perspective. Because in his first book, The Kite Runner, you get to read a story that evolves around the life of a male protagonist. Whereas in A Thousand Splendid Suns, the leading characters are both females. Both novels take place in Afghanistan, which means as a reader, you are going to have an insight into both the lives of a boy and a girl, a woman and a man within the same society. I'm sorry, but I'm not going to tell you anything about the story because I believe that this is the kind of book that you will enjoy better if you just dive blindly into it. The story of the cat runner will make you question yourself. It'll make you realize that justice is a privilege not everyone can afford, especially in a country like Afghanistan. I think one of the ideas that the author wanted to convey is that Amir is like so many of us. I mean, we see injustice almost on an everyday basis. We sigh, we feel sorry for the person in question, we feel sympathy, but we just go on with our lives without doing a damn thing. And this is not because we don't care or because we don't want to care, but sometimes we feel like change or justice might come at the expense of our own safety or our own self-image. I went through all kinds of emotions reading this book. Negative emotions. I felt rage, pain, disgust, shock. And let me tell you, this book has plenty of unexpected, unpredictable plot twists. So you better watch out. I would say it's a heart-wrenching experience I've had with this book. And honestly, if you feel like you get shaken up so easily, if you feel like you are emotionally vulnerable, I would advise you not to go for this one. The last book I have listened to during July was The Automobile Club of Egypt by Alaa Aswany. I have listened to the audiobook in Arabic, and this is also my second book by the author. The first book I have read by Alaa Aswany was جمهورية كأن, or in English, The Republic of False Truths. His works are translated into so many languages. I'm just so glad that I finally picked a book by this author. I've heard so much about him, and I'm so glad I finally made this amazing discovery. So this book is a historical fiction. I'm going to stop saying the title because it's really too long for me. So it's a historical fiction set in Egypt back when the country was still under British occupation. Again, I'm not going to say anything about the story. I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. I'm just going to, share my personal feelings, the way I saw the book, and how much I liked it. I personally couldn't stop listening to the audiobook. It's so intense and fast-paced, and I honestly want to own all of his books. I think I owe you just one little detail about the book. The story starts with this author who is about to publish his latest book, and he goes to this beach house that he has just to concentrate on his proofreading and that stuff. And then the day he arrives there, in the middle of the night, he's going to hear some footsteps approaching his house. Nobody knows he's there, so he's going to open the door eventually. And the surprise is the people standing at his door are actually the characters he was writing about in his latest book. I mean, the book he's about to publish. So I'm just going to stop here. I'm not going to say anything. You need to read the book. It's really, really amazing. Alaa Al-Aswany is a great, amazing storyteller. As I've told you, I have just read 2 of his books, and in both books, you get introduced to multiple characters from different social classes, political and religious backgrounds. So it's like this is the way he writes his stories. You get to follow every single one of the characters throughout their own story. And although not all characters are related, but the author somehow finds a way to make their paths intersect at some point of the story. Alaa Al-Aswany provides raw descriptions of his characters. He takes his time at, setting foundations for the stories behind each and every one of the characters. I highly recommend both books if you haven't read them already, especially if you are into historical fiction like me, historical fictions that are set in an Arab country just like such as Egypt. Okay, now off to August, and as I've already mentioned, I've only managed to read 2 books. The first book was picked as Book of the Month by the Moroccan Women Read book club, and I was so glad that I finally had the chance to cross it off my TBR. The book in question is The Girl on the Train by Paula Hawkins. I'm sure you are already familiar with the title. Either you have at least watched the movie or read the book. I personally have such a unique experience with Paula Hawkins because 2 years ago, I have read Into the Water. This is the first book I read for her, and I just had this love-hate relationship with this book. I didn't know whether I loved it or hated it. And I realized months after reading this book that actually it was the one that got me into the psychological thriller genre. As for this one, I had absolutely no idea what the story was about. I haven't watched the movie, of course, and I haven't even watched book reviews about it or read book reviews about it. So I just wanted to get into it with no expectations at all. So I started reading, and at some point, I just started feeling kind of disconnected. But then I blamed it on my mood because I've had such a horrible mood while reading this one. So I promised myself that I would give it time and see whether it was going to get better or not. But eventually, I ended up not liking it. Aside from the writing style, which was amazing, I still like and admire Paula Hawkins' writing style. She gets you very easily into the vibes and the mood of the book, which is kind of a great thing. But still, I didn't like the story. Okay, I didn't like the story. It was not what I was actually craving. I think you get what I mean. I found the characters too annoying, very self centered and selfish as hell. But overall, I would say that this is a book that you'd probably enjoy if you were in the mood for it. I personally wasn't. However, it just crossed my mind that this could make a great TV show series, limited series, if I may say so. I don't know, what do you think about this? Let me know in the comments. I saved the best for the last, and I finally read this one, The Help by Kathryn Stokett. I have been wanting to read this book for so long, for years and years now, and I finally did. I'm super glad. You can't imagine how proud I am that I have read this one. Yes, I'm proud because this is the one I was looking for. This is what I was craving. This is what I needed to read. Before I say anything about this book, I have to tell you that this has made it into my all-time favorite reads. I would never get tired of recommending it to people, and I know that I haven't rated any of the previous books that I've talked about in this video, but to this one, I would give all the stars. The Help was the author's very first novel. It was published in 2009 after being rejected by 60 agents. Can you believe this? 60 agents refused to publish this one. It's a historical fiction set in Jackson, Mississippi, the author's native town, and it is now considered as an American classic. The story follows the life of African American women working as maids or helps in white households. Everything in this book is so damn perfect. I love the characters, and I was so lucky to experience listening to the full cast audiobook on Audible, which brought all characters into life. Again, I'm not going to say anything more about the story, but please, if you haven't read this book, if you think, just like I used to think, that this book is going to take you so much time because it's a little bit long, I promise it won't. You won't be able to put it down. I promise. And just to assure you, I swear, if this book was 1,000 pages more, I would definitely read it. This book not only sheds light on the subject of racism, but it has so much into it. It's about feeling socially awkward, out of place, not fitting the criteria set for you by a hypocrite society, especially if you are a woman. And as it is written on the cover of the book, I don't know if you can see it, change begins with a whisper. I think it's true. I believe it's true. You know, sometimes it's not wise to try to make a radical change all at once. Change requires time, it requires patience, taking risks, sacrifice. And in this regard, I think that Mrs. Skeeter was the one who had to sacrifice more than what was expected from her, especially as a white woman. I loved how driven she was, how passionate about her cause, how she had to step on her own heart just to keep her promise to Aileen, Minnie, and to the other women. I don't think I have said this enough. Please go read this book, even if you have watched the movie. Read it. Okay, I think that I've finished speaking about the 8 books that I've read during July and August. Now let's start speaking about the 3 books that I've got. Just like any other reader, I keep promising myself not to buy more books, but I'm doing my best. Really, I'm really doing my best. It's already past 2 months and I've only bought 3 books. So I guess I'm trying to make some progress. I have got 2 classics, and the first one is The Color Purple by Alice Walker. Let's just not speak about how beautiful this cover is because I think we don't even need to. But in my defense, this was not a compulsive purchase. I mean, the 2 next books were, but this was not a compulsive purchase, I swear. I was meaning to get a physical copy of this book. I have no idea what the book is about. I only know that it's an American classic. So, yeah, that's it. The next one, I admit, it was a compulsive purchase. Les Misérables by Victor Hugo. I just couldn't resist the beauty of this cover. I don't know if you can see the details. I will probably add a picture to my Bookstagram profile, but this is just so freaking awesome. I just love this copy, and it's like I treated myself into this one. I will leave the link to the bookstore where I got both of these books, so you could just go and check it out. The next book I got is The Gardens of Light by Amin Malouf. Amin Malouf is one of the authors that I can't wait to discover. I already have an Arabic copy of Samarkand, and I have got this English copy of Baldassarre's Odyssey. Look how beautiful it is. I'm particularly interested in this author because I've heard that he writes amazing historical fictions, and as I'm a huge fan of the genre, I would like to get into his works. So, yeah, this would be all for today. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. And by the way, I would like to thank you all for all the messages, all the comments, all the likes and subscribes, everything. It just means the world to me. If you have just come across my channel, make sure you check my Bookstagram account. I always leave the link on my description box. If you have any other suggestions, comments, feel free to DM me on Instagram or even leave comments down below. Thank you again for watching and hope to see you soon in my next video. Bye.